All right. Are you scaling an agency and you're looking to take things to the next level? You're in the right place. My name is Kevin Sanderson. I am the host of the Scale Your Agency Summit, and I will be joined here momentarily by Kyle Hunt from Agency Operators Level Up. We're going to be talking about ways to help you scale your business, take things to the whole new level. So we've got a lot of really cool things in store for you today at this live stream, as well as we also have some fun stuff for you ahead over the next few days. So I just want to make sure this thing's on, because every now and then I have like technical issues, like the internet goes out or the cord doesn't work properly. So if you don't mind, just let me know in the comments that you can hear me, or just click that little thumbs up icon, to like the video, so to speak, to let, whether you're on LinkedIn or on YouTube, to let us know that you can hear me. So again, if you don't mind, just put that into the chat that yes, you can hear me, and we will from time to time reward participation. So, all right. So my special guest is here. I'm bringing him to the stage. We're joining each other and super excited that folks are here. So I did have chemistry brand multimedia 9316. That's a very specific says that, yeah, it's on, can hear me. So that's good. Welcome, Kyle. I'm super excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about how people can help them scale their agency. And Tim Rasmussen gave us the thumbs up emoji.
All right. I love that it verbalizes it. Thumbs up emoji. It's not like
sometimes you're like, where's the emoji thingy at? And then we've got Juan Pablo actually gave us the thumbs up emoji. So that's good. That's good. So good news is folks can hear us. So people are excited because we're going to be talking about, fun stuff here. So webmax.agency says, let's go. So yeah, we're going to get this party started. So we'll do a giveaway here in just a minute. So I do reward participation from time to time. In fact, I'm going to do this. Everybody there's 4 of you that responded and said, whether you spelled out the emoji or you actually gave an emoji or you just said, yes, I can hear you, or let's go. So the 4 of you email Kevin at LGN Marketing, as in lead gen and nurturing. So lgnmarketing.com, Kevin at lgnmarketing.com, and tell me that I promised you the List Growth Summit. It's a summit I hosted about 2 months ago to help you scale your list. And I'll give you that absolutely for free. So all you got to do is email Kevin at lgnmarketing.com. And we're going to be doing all kinds of giveaways. So make sure to participate. Participation trophies are rewarded here.
Too generous.
I try. So, all right. So real quick, Kyle, do you mind sharing everybody your background, how you got in the agency space and how you know stuff?
Oh, sure. So I've been in the agency space for over a decade now, as I'm like thinking about it. My first agency was a lead gen agency. So we did B2B lead gen for financial services, and ended up exiting that business to my business partner. That was a pretty big win. And then I had a pretty large brand, a D2C brand, e-commerce brand that I founded, that I scaled to multiple 8 figures. It was a COVID baby, definitely did much better in COVID with the multiple 8 figures. And then I went back to the agency space because I'm a masochist, and acquired a minority share in Weekend Digital, which is an 8-figure agency. And now it's a portfolio, actually. We own about a dozen brands and have equity in them.
Oh, nice.
And then I started Agency Operators, which is the operations consultancy and mastermind that I'm focused on now. And by far the most fun business I've ever started. I love it. And I like get hyped up on all my client calls, and it's a very fun business.
Well, awesome. And that means you're coming here with very unique perspectives because you've built multiple businesses and have seen the inner workings of 7- and 8-figure agencies, both, ones that you've owned or had an ownership stake in, as well as ones you've consulted in and helped. So we'll get into a little bit more about kind of what people can do better, what they're doing wrong, what you're seeing, all that fun stuff. But before we do that, I want to do another giveaway. So this is part of the Scale Your Agency Summit, and Kyle was generous enough, and his company, Agency Operators Level Up, to sorry, someone put a comment that just had me questioning for a second, but then they clarified it. So I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, Kyle and his company are sponsors of the summits. And so basically, if you don't yet have your ticket and you're watching this and you're like, what are you guys even talking about? You can go to scaleyouragencysummit.com, get your free ticket. And if you'll have access to the sessions until at least midnight on Thursday. Who knows? Maybe I'll go even farther than that. Why not? But when the summit's over, you have to have the VIP upgrade, which if you want right now to sparksummits.com/VIP and you purchase the upgrade, it's $97. And that price is going to be going up here soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for folks who don't yet have the VIP upgrade, I'm going to give one away. So if you'd like to be entered to win, just type in VIP into the chat. VIP is a very important person. And you could win a VIP upgrade. So just type VIP into the chat. We'll pick a winner. Not everybody wins, but everybody gets a chance to win. But you have to be live and you have to type VIP into the chat. So we got folks entering it there. International 27990 says, where's Nike? And that's what kind of caught my attention there for a second ago, but he meant Mike. So is there a Mike? Do you know the Mike he's talking about?
I know a lot of mics. I don't know if it's the mic he's talking about though.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So we're not sure which mic you're talking about, but we're excited that you're here. Yeah. And we'll be talking about all kinds of fun stuff. And then Webmax.agency said awesome. And I think that was regards to the award I was giving other people. So also said Webmax.agency said, love the live talks. Someone posted about it on Reddit. Oh, yeah. So oddly enough, there's a Reddit r-agency that Jake Hundley, one of our other speakers, apparently runs. I'm like, that seems like a big one.
Gotta get to know that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Real good guy. So, all right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So pick a number, Kyle, pick a number between 1 and 10.
6.
6?
6.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So chemistry, Prand multimedia, which I guess is Chris Cuban. So Chris Cuban, you won the free VIP upgrade. Just email kevin@lgnmarketing.com and we will get you that free VIP upgrade. So you have to email me and you have to tell me what it was. And the problem is I've done these live streams so many times and I promise stuff. And then I'm like, what did I tell you? People say, oh, I won. What did you win? Because I promised like multiple things and I never write it down. I'm terrible about that, but it is a opt-in thing. So unfortunately there is no VIP emoji, but thank you for trying. This is the emoji writer outer person. So
we should make one. Yeah.
We should. I should figure out one. Although Webmax agency looks like has something. I don't know. I need my glasses to see if there's
it's like a trophy
writing on that. Yeah, there's a trophy. It looks like there's like wording. I can't tell if
maybe it says VIP. I don't know.
Yes. But anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of why everyone is here. We all want to scale. What do you see in your experience prevents people from getting to that next level? Because I'm sure they get into it and they just think like, oh yeah, just get some clients and just keep getting more clients and everything's just going to work out perfectly, right?
Yeah. Man, loaded question because there's so many issues that I see with agencies. And I think it's there's a guy, Chris Voss, who has a book that I really like, Never Split the Difference. He's an FBI negotiator. And now he does consulting on negotiations. And he has a saying that I really like, which is that the situation determines the strategy. So it's not even related to negotiation, but whatever situation you're in should determine the strategy that you use. So there's a lot of smaller agencies that are coming to me that are, call it sub $30,000 per month. And they're like, I need to be able to scale. And I'm like, well, for your situation, probably actually what you need to focus on is lead gen and sales and just developing the service as a product, because you don't have anybody going through your funnel. So you don't know if you have a good service. And then agencies that tend to be larger that already have that figured out, which is who I work with exclusively, is how do we fix your operations? And I don't know, you can ask me questions about all the different types of operational challenges, because there's a million and I just wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay, got it. Okay, so basically, it's a little bit of it depends, and that's everybody wants a black and white answer. This is the silver bullet. If you do this, it'll just work out perfectly. So it depends. So if you're sub $30,000 a month, it's sales and marketing is pretty much where you need to focus on.
Yeah, you need to talk to people, and you need to push people through your service funnel, see where the leaks are and how you can fix them. And then if you're above that, you probably have that somewhat figured out already. So now it's, how do we take a look at the systems that we're using inside the agency? So for example, how do we take a look at the metric system that we're using to track our team and how they're performing relative to our clients' goals and our clients' values? How do we look at the systems for strategy and understanding what the team's prioritizing? Or how do we look at the system for talent and how we're recruiting, hiring, and onboarding teams? So there's a lot of the larger clients that I work with will come to work with me as a fractional COO. I do an audit of their agency, and those tend to kind of be the categories that I see when I'm really looking at operational issues is, are they tracking the right metrics and looking at the right things from a team perspective? Do they have the right strategy from a priorities perspective so that you can open your laptop and understand what you're supposed to be working on that day in your team as well? Do we have the team structure set up correctly in a way that it's scalable and has a clear sight of accountability and ownership? Do we have the correct talent funnel for hiring and onboarding and training? And do we have processes that are team owned and that the team can help to optimize versus usually it's the founder who's creating process in a black box of their own, and then nobody follows it because nobody created it besides the founder. So those are like the 5 main issues that I see when I'm talking to agency owners that are most agencies have. Even I talked to a $20 million a year agency last week that I'm going to do an audit for, same problems, even though they're probably 20 times the size of most agencies on my call.
Got it. So when do you think that kind of range of issues pops up for agencies? Like what size?
Usually I'll call it 60 to 100K. And that's because they probably just figured out the lead gen and sales component. And then they tried to scale and they didn't have systems or processes, like all the things that I just talked about. And then they hit a ceiling and clients tend to churn, and then they're back to like the 30K. So they might have gotten up to 80K or 100K, but then everything blew up and they lost a bunch of clients, and now they kind of have to start out over. That's a lot of the clients that I end up working with.
Got it. So they sold their way past their capacity, and then service issues crept up, and so now it's like, oh boy, I did great. The sales and marketing thing you told me to do earlier, now all of a sudden I got to fix it. So how do they prevent that from happening as they scale up?
So when I'm working with clients, it's usually to install those systems. And I have like a sales presentation that I run people through. And the first slide is that you don't have an operations problem, because people come to me for operations help because I'm on LinkedIn like the operations guy. But like what you really have is a systems problem. So you don't really have the system for metric tracking for the team. You don't really have the system for your organizational structure. You don't have the system for talent, onboarding, and hiring and training. So then it's how do we just implement those and install those inside your agency?
Got it. All right. So we're going to get to I'm going to keep asking some questions that I have for Kyle. Now, for those of you watching, if you have specific questions, which I see some starting to come in here, feel free to add them into the chat, both LinkedIn and Facebook, or sorry, LinkedIn and YouTube, and I'll bring those up. I do want to just point out, someone said, bro could have easily said the number 9, but cheers anyway. That's when we asked Kyle to pick a number between 1 and 10. I say that every time I get a lottery ticket. They could have picked these 6 numbers, but they didn't.
Any number, yeah. I'm sorry, give us the number 9, yeah.
Exactly. We always want it to be our number. But anywho, cool. All right. So question here from webmax.agency. Do you think agencies should create their own internal systems for team management instead of following a generic template like EOS from the book Traction?
Okay, yeah, really good question. So for those of you who don't know, EOS was written by this guy, Traction was written by this guy, Gino Wickman. He then created the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I do think that EOS is good training wheels for beginner agencies that don't have really any internal strategy. Essentially, mostly what EOS focuses on is strategy. So what are we trying to create for like our 5-year goals, and then our 3-year goals, and then our 1-year goals, and how does that translate to our rocks and priorities? So EOS does a good job at setting that foundation. But when I'm working with the agencies that I do that are usually digital marketing agencies, they have a few things that are different than the typical EOS client, which is just a traditional professional services firm. They're usually very creative. So that requires a different level of person. They're usually very skilled. So if you're, for instance, a media buyer and you're a good media buyer, you're probably media buying for 5 to 8 years. Or if you're a creative strategist, the same thing. So there's a high level of skill. There's also a high level of knowledge that's required for most of these jobs too. So all three of these things make digital marketing agencies much different from the traditional white collar professional services firm that EOS tries to service. So I do think that once you have the beginning frameworks for EOS, you do need to look outside of EOS for all the holes and all the gaps that EOS doesn't fill. So for instance, talent, like how do we hire, onboard, and train people so that they're at 100% capacity ready within 30 days? Like EOS doesn't really give us any information on that. And that's probably the most important thing. And one of the most important constraints of being an agency is talent, because we sell fractions of people's time. So EOS, there's a lot of gaps and a lot of holes that you have to make up for if you are going to use EOS as your framework. Another thing is EOS recommends a weekly meeting, the L10 meeting. But in a digital marketing agency that has a lot of deliverables, so for example, like an email agency or a creative agency where we might be delivering 10 to 20 emails a day or dropping 5 to 10 creatives a day. It's like if you have one meeting a week for production and something happens on Tuesday and the meeting's on Monday, like you're screwed for the rest of the week. Right. So you also need a faster pulse on production when you're in a high rate of production environment like those types of agencies. So there's I think EOS is a good foundation if you've never done anything for operations from a structural perspective, but there's so many holes and so many gaps in it. You just have to kind of figure out on your own, or we'll pay somebody like me to help you with.
Got it. So it could be a good starting point. And chemistry, Pran Multimedia said agree is great for helping with process and procedure, which I think is a little bit different than what you were just saying. I think this was earlier than when you gave yours, but it sounds like they're using it basically as a basis, but you still have to go farther than what it has.
Yeah, and like to that point, I think there's 16 pages in traction on process when it really should be like a whole book on its own. So it gives you like some good fundamentals, but there's really so much on top of it that you have to add that it basically becomes an entirely new system.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to your point, like a regular professional services firm like a CPA, usually everyone's in the office. At least my CPA. It's like if I think he would convulse if I emailed him like my numbers. He always wants me to come into the office. Everyone's there, they're all together. It's all local. It's local clients. So it's just probably just a different mindset than a marketing agency where a lot of times your employees are spread around the country or the world, as are oftentimes your clients. And so it's just different dynamic, and the processes are more important. So that's a very good point.
For sure.
All right, next up, what's one major thing for agencies that are just starting out to look for leakages in their funnel?
So I'll caveat this, that I don't say that I'm a lead generation expert or a sales expert. All my lead generation is currently done through content, and that's through LinkedIn. So 100% of the leads that I'm booking right now are through one funnel. And I think this is a big mistake that people make when they're new in terms of leakage, is they'll try too many funnels. So they'll try LinkedIn, or they'll try Twitter, or they'll try YouTube. And this is very common with agencies that I audit that are smaller, where I'm like, okay, what type of lead gen are we doing? And they'll name like 6 things. And like, but you're also running the business. There's no way you're doing all those good. So how do you find 1 or 2 that you're really excellent at? And I like to think of it in terms of, I want to have one that's inbound, and that's usually the content creation, because content is great inbound. And I want to have the one that's outbound too. So that might be, if I'm doing LinkedIn content, I'm also going to be DMing people on LinkedIn as well. And Yeah. So the two systems work together really well, one inbound, one outbound. You can do that a million ways. Your outbound could be paid ads, your inbound could be
Right.
whatever, newsletter. But there needs to be some way to kind of nurture people and some way to generate those new leads. But like that's it, just one or two of those, and then only focus on those. And like case in point, this month so far, I have like 23 calls booked on my calendar, and it's not even the end of January yet. So content is very effective, and I'm actually purposely limiting the amount of calls I'm taking because I'm overbooked on calls and capacity too.
Good problem to have.
So that's what happens when you focus exclusively on like one or two things really well.
Okay, good. And I guess we could probably talk a little bit more about, that. We'll focus more on the systems and operational part, because that's more your forte.
I can do it all, I can talk about it all, but yeah, I'm more of an domain expert in the operations and system stuff.
Yes. And I have talked to 8-figure agencies that have worked with Kyle. Like, this guy knows his stuff. So Kyle knows his stuff. It's proven. So feel free. This is to ask your questions. This is basically, you get free coaching here by just putting in a question into the chat, which is a unique opportunity. And if you want some of Kyle's knowledge kind of wrapped in a little bit of a bow, and you don't yet have your tickets, you can go to the scaleyouраgencysummit.com, or scaleyouраgencysummit.com, I should say. And you can get a free ticket, and you get access to Kyle's session, which comes out on Thursday. So if you already have your ticket, just mark your calendar for Thursday. Say, I'm going to make sure that that's one of the first ones I watch is Kyle's session, because Kyle laid it out pretty cleanly. So just real quick, do you mind giving everybody kind of a quick insight into what they can expect from watching your session?
Everything that I just said compressed into 30 minutes.
Yes.
I basically go over in detail the three main systems that I install in agencies with specific examples. So if we look at, like, for example, the metric system, I go over, this is what I think you should be tracking on a daily basis with the team. This is why you should be tracking those things. This is what you should be tracking on a weekly basis and monthly basis. So I go into more detail on that. On I call it the self-directed team model, which is the organizational structure, like how I think the ideal organization should be structured, and my variant of the pod structure, and how the math should work out, and what are the key roles. And then I also talk about, for strategy, how we should ultimately create the strategy for an agency. And strategy just means, like, what are we focusing on? And I have 4 tiers and 4 buckets that I like to bucket strategy into. So I go through all that and walk you through the exercise of how to actually do it on your own too. So it's a mini version of kind of like what I saw inside my mastermind, and also one-on-one or fractional COO, but in a digestible version that you can action if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. And so if you have your ticket, make sure you check out Kyle's session. If you don't yet have your ticket, go to scaleyouраgencysummit.com and grab your ticket. It's free, but this opportunity is going to disappear on Thursday when we stop offering tickets at all. So if you have questions for Kyle, now is an awesome time to ask them in the chat if you're live. We have WebTech CC asks, how do you handle client concerns with conflicts of interests when doing work for many people in the same industry, in the same geo areas? If you limit similar clients, you stunt growth.
Gosh, I can't remember his name exactly. I think it's Aaron. His name is Aaron Novich, I think is his last name. Okay. And he's the founder of Breeze, but before Breeze, like a big CBD marijuana and a drink brand. They're very large.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
BREZ. So before that, he owned a company that was an agency. Well, I think he still owns it, and they focused exclusively on CBD clients. So like, if you look at their client list, it was all like Charlotte's Web, all the big CBD clients he had on them. And I asked him about that, and he's like, well, if you have 2 clients that are the same, then it's a conflict. If you have 3 clients that are the same, now it's a specialty. So yeah, so like, if that's what you specialize in, then you're going to have all those clients. And oftentimes, not often, most of the time when I'm advising my clients on what's the ICP that they should follow, and ICP just means what's the ideal client that you should try to bring on for agency. I'm trying to get them to go as niche as possible, either on a vertical perspective or on a founder type perspective or something. So if their vertical perspective, It might be like they only work with high ticket e-commerce brands in the fashion industry. It's like,
Mm,
well, if you have a bunch of those together, now that's your specialty. Like that's actually what you specialize in,
yeah.
and it becomes a selling point to the clients versus a negative in their mind.
Yeah, that's a good point because you can say like, hey, we know what works and what doesn't. And so
Exactly.
yes, maybe there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. I think for this particular question, I think it kind of goes down to a little bit of the same area. I I've heard this one mentioned before, like, okay, if you do morticians or what is the
I think
I want
that's
to
right.
say mortuary home, funeral home. You do funeral homes, and there's 2 funeral homes in Broward County that you work with. Is that a conflict of interest in your opinion? Like, because I've heard some people say, like, okay, we'll tell people like I'll only do one in your area. So if you work with me now, you can get before I get your competition. Or do you
Yeah.
worry about that as a conflict of interest?
No, no, I wouldn't. And if I did, what I would do is I would charge a gosh, what's the word? I I just like did this for one of my clients who he only works with recruiters and he only works with mortgage companies. So he helps mortgage companies do lead gen, but for recruitees. So like finding people who will
Mm,
work for the mortgage company to sell mortgages. And I just help them to recreate an offer because that's often one of the first things that I do when I start working with the agency is like recreate their offer. And he has these companies where they're like, they don't want to work with like very specific competitors for very old school reasons. And I'm like, that's fine. You should just charge them a fee for it. Like, if you don't want me to work with this competitor, you get exclusivity and it's a $3,000 a month fee.
mm.
So you can sell that too. You can bundle it as a part of the offer and sell it if you think that it's valuable enough to the other client. But in most cases, it's like it's probably in your head more so than anything, because as
Yeah.
long as you're getting really good results from both, then it really doesn't matter. And then additionally, one more thing that I'll add is the structure that I have that I recommend for agencies is a pod structure, and all a pod means is that you have a group of team members that are focused on a very specific group of clients. So say that were to be an issue for a client, you could just say, well, they're going to be another pod from you. It's a completely different team. They don't even talk. So your strategy is going to be different. Your positioning is going to be different. Everything's going to be different too. So if it was an issue, you could sell to another pod, but most of the time it's actually a non-issue and people just care about getting good results.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that, like, if somebody brought it up in a sales call, it's not what's holding them back. It's more of a symptom than the actual thing they're worried about.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like a false objection, but it's usually not a real
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah. Because if anything, it's like, well, wouldn't you want to have the same knowledge base that's helping your competitors,
Yeah,
and if
they
they
know
have the
really well.
competitive
Yeah.
advantage over
Yeah.
you because you're not working with us,
Yeah.
type of thing. All right. International 27990 says, as you previously said, starter agencies should really work on marketing instead of getting top systems integrated. So content as the inbound. Can you really double down the type that really works?
Okay, so I'll just talk about LinkedIn because that's what I know. I don't I'm on Twitter. I have like 15,000 followers, but I haven't really posted on it in quite some time, and I also don't regularly post on YouTube. So I'll stick to LinkedIn to what I know.
Mhm.
So right now, what's working on LinkedIn and how I'm viewing this is lead magnets are the number one reason that people follow me. I'll post a few lead magnets per week, 2 to 3 lead magnets per week. And for those of you that don't know what a lead magnet is, it's just a post where I'm like, hey, I've done these really awesome things. I have this thing that helped me get there. I'm going to give it away. Comment below and I'll send it to you. So I do a few lead magnets per week, and on the low end, I'll usually get a couple hundred comments, and on the high end, I've gotten 4,000 or 5,000 comments on a single lead magnet. So it's 4 to 5 thousand people who are hand raising, and like I want your help on something because the
Yeah.
topics I'm writing about are directly related to agency operations. So I view that as my top of funnel, and I consistently post 2 to 3 per week. I've sort of my plan was to post them every day, and I have like a whole AI system built around it. But as I mentioned earlier, my internal lead volume right now is crazy, so I haven't done that. But I do think that you should post a couple of times a week from a top of funnel perspective with lead magnets, and then I view my regular posts as more mid of funnel, bottom of funnel. So people are viewing me from the lead magnets. I get a lot of impressions and leads, but then I also have my regular posts on LinkedIn, and those are just insight-driven content, which is different from value-driven content. So I'm very big on like how I give insights and the thinking behind why I recommend what I recommend. I think that's more impactful for people to understand versus like a value type of post. So that's how I'm viewing my personal LinkedIn content right now. Is like top of funnel is lead magnets, do a couple of those a week, and then bottom of funnel, middle funnel is just my regular posts, and I do those every single day, sometimes twice a day.
Are you using an automation to fulfill the lead magnets, or are you doing that all manually?
Yeah. So right now, I actually have a inside agency operators, which is the mastermind. On Thursday, I'm presenting on this, but I had in March I presented AI content machine version 1.0, which was using Make and Zapier and ChatGPT and a lot of things that I hobbled together for lead gen, and it created pretty good outcomes, I'd say, from a posting perspective for LinkedIn. It took me about 10 minutes to edit a post. Now I have version 2.0 that I created. It's all in N8N. We use Claude for content creation. We have very specific agents, which much better prompting. Now it takes me about 1 minute to write a post. And it's really me just like the AI writes the post and I'm just editing it for any glaring issues, which there's usually not. Mostly it's for the hook, which is the most important part of the post. So I just want to make sure I have the correct hook on it. And then I auto post it. So now my content is about 1 minute per post. It's like 10 minutes. I take 10 minutes per week now to do the regular post. The lead magnets, they used to take me 4 hours to do a lead magnet. I've also hired really great people to build lead magnets for me as well too, that have done really, really well. There's some case studies out there on LinkedIn too, but that was a very long process. Now I paid an AI automations expert, and now I can create lead magnets on demand in about 15 minutes. And that 15 minutes is me just QAing the post, and it's QAing the content that the post creates. So it's pretty crazy what you can do with AI now. And the results are better than me manually typing stuff. so it's like that. The results are better too.
Yeah. And I forget, is this how you're getting people on your email list?
So I get people on my email list through the lead magnets. So they'll comment. Okay. So they'll comment on the post, and I'll send them to a landing page. The landing page has a name and email. Yeah. So the landing page has a name and email. So I collect the name and email through there. And now what I'm also doing is if somebody comments on the post and they're my ICP, I send it to a clay filter and I filter to make sure they're ICP, and then I automatically email them the thing. So that's currently being built right now, and I think by next week I'll have that done.
Okay.
Because like if you imagine you get, let's say 1,000 people comment per day, you can only like DM 150 people maybe per day on LinkedIn. So I have people who are waiting like a week for their lead magnet. So if I scrape their email, then I can send it to them automatically same day.
Okay. I didn't realize there was a limit, because I've heard this rub about this from people commenting before. It's like you comment and then you never hear back, and sometimes it probably is just the person's not very good at follow up.
You can get overwhelmed very easily with this.
Yeah. I could imagine. It's like, and then how do you keep track of which ones you did and which ones you didn't? But one thing I will say is you've developed a responsive email list from this, because you were right now, like I forget, in the top 3 of refers of people to this summit. So
cool.
Yeah, so it's working. So your system is working. So folks, definitely recommend you do what Kyle is talking about here, which he talks more about in his session, which comes out on Thursday. So make sure to check that out. So, all right. So the other question, now that they've got, these people and whatnot, you talked about, pod structure and whatnot. So if they get to 30,000 or whatever, they may or may not have the funds for a full pod. How do you scale into, let's say, the pod?
So it's important that you structure the pod correctly from a margin perspective in the first place. So what I have is I have like a calculator that'll show what does the team look like that's necessary for this type of business? How much are their salary costs? That's one thing. So now say the entire salary cost for the pod is $20,000. Well, now I have gross margin targets or pod margin targets at different capacity levels that I want to understand. So what does my gross margin for that service or that pod look like at 100% of my clients? So meaning the pod is full, at 80%, meaning we have additional capacity, and at 60%. And I want to make sure that each of those levels I'm profitable above my targets. So step one to even doing this is making sure the team is structured the right way. And one really big issue that I always find with agencies that are sub even $50,000 is they'll do a version of this projection wise, but they won't include a cost to replace them. So they'll price their offer based on the current team, not the future team, and then they don't have any money to hire a leader, to hire a manager. So that's a really easy mistake to make because you're not thinking I need to replace myself. But if you think for yourself, if you're in the US, like to replace yourself as a manager for any of those agencies is easily 6 figures. And then if you're international, it's still quite expensive. So we have to build the pod infrastructure and the math first to make sure that it works. And then we can create an offer that makes sure that we have the margin to be able to afford the team that we need.
Yeah. So set up now for what you want. And then that way you have that buffer. So, all right. So we have this comment here from International 27990. Valuable insights. Will this be live or will this live be available after it ends? Frankly speaking, should be. Yes, we'll leave this one up. And if you're in the summit, this will be added into the members area as well. And if you're registered for the summit, I'll also send out the replay too. So, but one of the things to keep in mind is we've got maybe another 20-ish minutes left of this live. So this is your opportunity to ask questions. So I'm just going to keep picking Kyle's brain until the folks that are watching decide to, jump in and ask the questions. So Kyle, if somebody wanted to just, pay you for an hour, is that even available?
It is. I do consulting. Usually they're retained hour packages for like 4 hours per month. But I have done like one-off consulting for people if I think it'll turn into a longer relationship.
Oh, gotcha. But that's still probably not cheap.
No, it starts at $12.50 per hour.
Okay. So you can spend $12.50 per hour or for free in this unique opportunity, which you're not going to get very often. You can ask the question in the comments, and who knows, I might even pick another winner just for participation. But people have asked some really good questions here. So now let's say they've now hired the manager. What is the next? Okay, they've got the manager, they've got we're starting to create the systems for their pod. What are the next kind of new level, new devils?
So let me show you something. How about this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Share your screen. I'll add it to the live here shortly as Kyle's pulling that up. So just as a reminder, ask your question. Here's one of the things I've learned about Q&As. Everyone's nervous to ask questions. I don't want to look bad. You're not. I can promise you. One, your clients aren't watching this, and two, you're going to ask a question that everyone else is going to be like, I'm so glad they asked that because I wanted to know that. So, all right. So let me go ahead and add this to the stage here. So, wrong one. All right. I will. Yeah. So go ahead.
Can we see this? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
I don't know if I've ever shared this publicly, but this is how I'm looking at the math when I'm building out a pod. And how this works is someone will come to me if they're a smaller agency owner and they don't really have a team. And this is for a creative team that sells like UGC creative or content creative. And they might be the main creative strategist for the team. And maybe they hired an editor and maybe they hired a graphic designer and they used a bunch of creators. So I use the creator costs in here as well. So these are like the people we're paying to make the creative. Like the creators themselves. And then we probably need someone to coordinate that creative as well. So this is how we start to build a pod structure. And this is one pod while the owner is still in service delivery, meaning they're probably the creative strategist. And this sheet has the total compensation for the pod and then the capacity in terms of number of clients at 100% and 80% and 60%. So And for example, this at 100%, this pod can service 6 clients. 80% is like 5 and 60% is 4. The average service price that we have here is $10,000, which that could sound like a lot for you, but is pretty regular for clients that I work with. And this pod would have $60,000 in monthly revenue. Our total compensation would be $24,000, such as this, which means the pod profit on this is roughly 60%. And that's at 100% capacity, and down to 60%, we're at 40%. So this means that if we're here, we're very profitable. If we're here, we're probably 10%, maybe 20%, depending upon the level of management and administrative we have in the agency, and if we spend on paid ads. So we should still be net profitable at all of these margins. So this is scenario 1. And then scenario 2 is I'm like, well, you need to hire yourself out of being a creative strategist. So you need to hire what I call a pod lead. And if you're international, these are all US salaries. So like decrease it based on your local market rates. But a pod lead in the US, which in this instance would be a creative manager, someone that's really skilled at creative and also has managed a team before, that's a 6-figure job or close to it. So we have to add this compensation here for someone to manage the team, because it's probably you right now. So this is the thing most people miss. And this position is usually 10% of revenue for the pod. So it can be a very big hit to people if their offer is unoptimized, that they're not including this person in their cost perspective. So now when we look at this pod built out, we're actually able to add some capacity here. Previously, we could only work with 6 clients. Now we can work with 8 clients. But the reason is because this person, part of their job is client calls and client communication. So all these people that spent probably 1 to 2 hours per day in client calls and client communication get all that time back to now go focus on creative strategy and editing and graphic design and the things that we're really paying them to do as an agency owner, not talk to clients. So we get some increase in capacity here. And that means with this new pod lead, that the monthly pod margin decreases to 55%, and at 80% decreases to 49%, and 60% decreases to 40%. So this is below what I would like to see for most creative agencies. I'd still like to see this as 60% minimum pod margin, including the pod lead. But we can run some numbers here and be like, okay, well, what if we increase the offer to 11,000? Okay, now we're basically there. So a $1,000 difference made a 4.5 point increase in pod margin. And that's all that was required really for this agency, is to get them to where I want them to be from a benchmark perspective of profitability. So once we have this is like the foundational pod. All we have to do is, how do we add more pods? So how do I build a second pod with the same type of team and the same type of offer and the same type of comp and the same capacity? When we get to 3 pods, we have to build another position, which is somebody that can manage the leaders that manage the pods, because now you're managing 3 pods. That's very difficult to do, plus probably sales and operations. So now I have to hire people. So I built this sheet out to show all the way up to 6 pods, which is usually roughly half $500,000 per month in revenue for most agencies, which is where I try to scale the agencies I work with too. But this is how I think about it. And it's like, once you created this base foundational pod, it's just, how do I add more of these things?
Yeah, this is super helpful. So we've got a couple other questions starting to come in here. So, because I made the comment earlier, like maybe people are nervous to ask questions. Well, Anthony Preston online says, I'm not nervous, Kevin. And his question is, do you use Facebook for any part of your funnel?
I do not use Facebook for any part of my funnel. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you just not use
could.
Facebook.
If you're good on Facebook, you could, but I've just historically been good on LinkedIn and gotten better results on LinkedIn. Even when Twitter, at one point I had Twitter and LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn was like 5,000 followers and my Twitter was 15, and 80 to 90% of my lead gen came from LinkedIn still, when I had 3 times as many followers on Twitter. So it's just, for whatever reason, how I talk or how I present myself or my positioning performs better on LinkedIn than Twitter.
Well, and I would imagine it probably also depends on, your clientele, where are they hanging out? So
dude, there's agency owners everywhere.
Right, exactly. That's true.
They're everywhere.
That's true. That's true. But if your niche is, dentists, where are the dentists hanging out? So it depends.
For sure.
But since I did say I would give somebody a participation trophy, so Anthony Preston, if you email Kevin at lgnmarketing.com, I will give you the List Growth Summit absolutely for free. So next up, we have International 27990 says, just to cool things down because bro is giving value on fire. What thing matters more, skill or lead gen client acquisition overall?
It depends upon the level that you're at, right? Because if you're smaller, you need to have lead gen and client acquisition, or else you can't get clients. You can learn skill over time, but you need to get clients first. When you're larger, they both still matter, but the service itself matters more because now you're trying to retain clients. So depending upon where you're at and those revenue milestones I talked about earlier would determine whether I'd focus in one or the other in your agency.
Awesome. And then Brian Ebeson, I think I said that, or maybe I don't know. Brian E. Beeson. I don't know. Either way, Brian, thanks for coming on here and saying this hit me spot on. I've literally become the bottleneck in my own agency, exactly the problem you're describing. Kyle, quick question. How do you recommend building a team when you are the expert everyone wants?
Yeah, you have to hire better people. So like a big challenge for a lot of the smaller agency owners that I work with, I'll call that sub 100K a month, is that they will not only do sales, but they'll also do service delivery too. So now not only are you selling clients, but now you're also the person who's servicing them. Like if you switch yourself out, the chance of churn is, the likelihood of churn is very high. Now you can always do things to decrease the risk of churn. So one of the frameworks that I like implementing when I'm trying to move people out of that position where you're the owner is first of all, you have to bring in very good talent. And talent that's as good as you or better, because the client's not going to trust it if they feel that they're a junior person that you're involving in the account. So you have to be able to pay for that level of talent. And usually in my organizations and the structure I recommend, that's going to be the pod lead, who's the most expensive person and is the most experienced person. But when they're introduced to the client, the positioning and the way you introduce them is very important, because usually this is how the client call goes. Hey, John, this is Sarah. She's your new account manager. She's pretty awesome. Have fun. And that doesn't position them for success, and it doesn't make the client feel like that person's an expert. So anytime you're introducing anyone into the account, you need to, number one, talk about expert positioning. So any accolades they have from accounts that they've scaled that are similar, like you need to bring that up. Like, John, she's worked with a company just like yours. There was an 8-figure accessories company before, and she's really awesome for that. That's specifically the reason we chose her. She also had these other credentials. So you need to make sure that she has the expert positioning. And then number two is there needs to be some sort of win that has either happened or that you can predict will happen that you need to attribute to that person. So that would go like, hey, John, last week you had this really big win in your account. And I just want to let you know, it actually wasn't even me. It was Sarah. Sarah's been running your account for the last 2 weeks. I've just been in the background checking and making sure that she's doing great, which she is obviously, because she came up with this huge thing. So that's best case scenario, is that he or she's actually been working the account. Or if you don't have that win yet because they're brand new, she has these suggestions on how we can turn things around and change things for this account and make sure they're better. So you have to introduce them as an expert and have that positioning. And you also have to connect them to a win that's happened, would be ideal, if not some sort of future win. And the talent has to be very good. And if you do those three things, they still might churn, but you'll have the highest likelihood of success that they won't churn.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. Kyle, thank you for your question. I'm going to give you the List Growth Summit as well. So just email Kevin at lgnmarketing.com. Let me know that I promised you the List Growth Summit. It's a summit on list building, similar tactics and others that Kyle was mentioning earlier, but I'll give you that summit. But you have to email me and tell me what it is. Describe what I promised you. And then International 27990 had commented before. I'm going to reward you too, since I know you wanted the VIP upgrade earlier. I'm going to give you the VIP upgrade. Email Kevin at lgnmarketing.com and let me know international to 7990, since you've been very participative. You've had a lot of participation here.
You have participated a lot. Yes.
Which is awesome. So earned your VIP. Just email Kevin at lgnmarketing.com and let me know that I promised you the VIP. And then Anthony Preston said, awesome. You're a G, Kev. I just get to hang out with cool people like Kyle. That's the fun part about doing these things. And then Tim asks, how has AI changed how you deliver services? Have you added AI solutions to your deliverables?
So AI is changing a lot, and I think it's actually changing slower in digital marketing than I would have expected. But I think that's because it's not as much harder to get a quality output from AI. You have to have very good prompting and like multiple levels of QA. But I will say it is now starting to impact a lot of agencies that I'm talking to from a sales perspective. In my own agencies, it's impacted it greatly, even the operations agency right now. So I just told you about the AI content machine 2.0 that I have for leads, where I do it for content creation, also for lead gen, but also from a service delivery perspective for me, meaning like how I consult my clients, it's also changed a lot too. And Claude Opus 4.5, like the new version of Claude, is very good if you give it the right frameworks and if you give it the right instructions. And separate tangent that's involved. If you ask AI a question about agency operations and you ask me the same question, they will often be complete opposites. And that's because I have more domain experience in digital marketing agencies and I have more frameworks. And it's just taking kind of stuff from EOS and all these other random kind of things and trying to apply them to agencies, which doesn't really work. So you have to be very particular with how you use AI and the frameworks you're giving it and the prompting you're giving it to have a good output. But all that being said, I'll give you an example, is that it used to take me 5 hours to do an audit with a client. And that was looking over the audit they gave to me, writing the response, creating a PowerPoint deck, etc. And now that same process takes me an hour with AI. And that's mostly me just QAing things and editing things. And it could be even lower, but now I'm adding things to it to add more value. So now I'm adding like these quick wins lists to the audit. And now I'm adding a full financial analysis, which would have taken an accountant like 10 hours to do. Yeah. So it's like the actual process time or the time that it takes me to do the audit has actually probably decreased down to 20, 30 minutes. But now that I have so much more time, I'm adding things that make it more valuable for the client. So a lot. Also for the clients that I'm talking to, anything that's like content written, it's impacting a lot. It hasn't quite yet hit video. So for instance, like editors, the capacity of an editor hasn't really changed that much.
Right.
Designers' capacity has gone way up. Creative strategists, anything that's dealing with like written word, capacity goes way up on those things. But if we're talking about like a creative agency, usually the editing is still the constraint. Eventually AI will hit that too, and it'll be much better. But everything is being impacted, and the capacity of teams is increasing. I want to say something important here. That doesn't mean that you should be cheaper. People pay for value. They do not pay for how long it takes for you to do something. So my audit is still $5,000, even though it takes me 1/5 the time to do, because I get a better output using AI and I create more things for AI. So it's actually much more profitable for me to do it with AI. Price hasn't changed. And in fact, it should probably go up because people get more value from it. So I do think that's important. Is everyone assumes that price compression is going to happen with AI, and I don't see that happen potentially on the do-it-yourself market, where there's like you sell $2,000-$3,000 a month retainers, and like people could probably do it themselves if they wanted to. Yeah. But if you're positioned to be a premium service and you have very good talent, like I don't see those agency services going away. If anything, I just see them getting more and more profitable. So I think being an agency owner is a good place right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because, it's kind of like the old saying, like, if the plumber comes over to your house, you're not going to like nickel and dime him because he's using a tool. Like, well, you didn't use your bare hands to take the nut off. Yeah. They had expertise that
I don't have when it comes to plumbing. So anyway, if people want to learn more or follow you, where should they go?
My LinkedIn, just look for Kyle Hunt Agency on LinkedIn, and I'll probably pop up there. I've probably been stalking you already if you're here, to be honest. So you probably see my content already. Yeah.
Just finally respond to Kyle, or look and maybe you guys are following each other and you don't realize
I
it.
probably reached out to you. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. International 27990 says, let's go. Appreciate it, bro. So he's excited about what we're learning here.
Thank you.
And Brian says, thanks. And he needs a Sarah, which is your analogy. So cool. Well, thank you for coming on here and sharing your knowledge, Kyle. This was good. I know people got a lot out of it. So we will be sending out the replay of this. And if you have your ticket to the summit, make sure to check out Kyle's session on Thursday when it comes out. I'm glad people are giving us good feedback on this session. This was great. Thanks. Yes. So make sure you also follow Kyle on LinkedIn if you're not already. Kyle Hunt, just like it sounds. And with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.